During the Middle Ages, the irrational fear of death, especially the fate after death, of evil spirits and demons, represented something even more important than life itself. Hell was the place most feared by people at that time, as it was seen as a terrifying, dark, sinister place full of suffering, pain, decay, and eternal punishment. The society of the ancient world worried too much about the gloomy place where their soul would wander after death, as demons, monsters, and others were constantly corrupting medieval homes. Thus, one of the most popular and terrible creatures during the Middle Ages was the dreaded gargoyle. It is said that they were terrifying and macabre beings that tormented humans, being mere demons and hostile beasts from hell. The origin of the gargoyles, in mythology, comes from a sinister story. The story goes that in a distant forest on the outskirts of Rouen, France, a dragon whose name was Gargouille terrorized the people who lived along the Seine River. For it constantly created terrible floods, spitting water, sinking large ships, ruining everything in its path, destroying crops, and killing people. Such was the wickedness of this beast that there was no being in the world that could defeat it. In the town the anxiety was incessant, and despair seized every corner of Rouen. The crowd, tired and overwhelmed by the terrible ravages Gargoyles suffered for many years, began to look for alternatives to calm the cruelty of the creature. The people of Rouen, terribly frightened, decided to make a human sacrifice to the dragon once a year, to appease their hunger and save their city, believing that tranquility would come to the city. This was done for several years, but the beast was too atrocious despite the efforts of the citizens. The story spread to other villages, who also felt fear at the thought that this dark creature could travel to their homes. Curiosity and good faith reached the small town of France, because among the many places where the story was heard, a priest named Romanus, who was traveling, heard the sad story, and immediately wanted to go to the city to support the plight of Rouen. The priest was sure that he would succeed in confronting Gargouille, and with his wise words, he convinced the people of his abilities, for he said that this macabre being was a terrible demon. The priest said that the dark dragon attacked the city because they had no faith and were worldly. Romanus proposed to the people of the town to build a great church, and that only then would he dare to confront the dragon. In the desperation of the crowd, they accepted categorically and began with the work that same day. After some time, the temple was finished and the priest, keeping his word, went out into the forest to look for the creature and kill it. After a long journey, Romanus encountered the dragon, and as he fought it he rebuked it with his prayers, until, at last, he was able to slay it. He cut off its head with a single slice, carried it to the gates of the city, and ordered it to be placed at the top of the walls of Rouen, thus giving birth to the first gargoyle. Later, however, in Gothic art during the Middle Ages, petrified figures of demonic beings began to be used in churches and other buildings. They were sinister figures with dragon heads, almost human bodies, and wings, with a chilling appearance. According to the myths, the gargoyles were lustful and cruel demons that disturbed human lives. According to the legend, these demonic beings enjoyed disturbing men, especially in churches. That is why these figures that exist in many Gothic temples were the product of which terrifying demons were turned into stone when trying to leave or escape from the churches, being condemned for all eternity, as mere stone statues on top of the churches. On the other hand, it is said that gargoyles were used as elements to scare away evil spirits from the temples due to their gloomy and nauseating appearance. By express indication of the clergy, in the Middle Ages, these grotesque stone creatures with demonic aspects were designed as guardians of temples and cathedrals. At that time, the priests claimed that with the gargoyles on the roofs, the evil spirits would be diverted, and those who were inside the churches would be safeguarded from all evil. However, over the years it has taken on a more architectural explanation, as it is said that, in reality, the figure of the gargoyle was designed as a decorative element, which managed to disguise the aesthetics of elements that at first glance damaged the elegant Gothic facades. In the buildings, the drains were too evident, so the designers and architects believed that their works were affected, and to make amends they decided to use gargoyles to cover this element, alluding to the fact that the creature spits water. Although the origin of these terrifying creatures is unknown, they still cause great anxiety, as their sinister appearance is typical of hell.